September 17th, 2018 meeting of the Transportation Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Howland?
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Here.
Mr. Michike?
Here.
Mr. Morelli?
Here.
Mr. Rocco?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Zal is excused. President Carbone?
Is there anyone signed up for the public hearing?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who's not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the August 28th, 2018 minutes of the Transportation Committee before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 18-0260.
Move it, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Moved by Legislator Michike, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Legislator Rocco.
Through the chair, can you tell me, is there an update on the roll out of the central computer, and is it up and running?
Please.
Through the chair, is there an update on the rollout of the central computer, and is it up and running?
Through the president, there's no update. But I don't recall the computer ever being down.
President Carbone.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, can I have an estimate of the number of staff employed in the control center?
Through the chair, there's approximately 4 dispatchers that this county employs, as well as an additional 3 different personnel, but then there's also state employees in the same facility.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes.
Referral 18-0261.
Moved by Legislator Rocco, seconded by President Carbone. Any discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, why were the inspections not anticipated?
Through the president, we originally anticipated doing an in-house design with an in-house construction, and it's going to take place over a duration of 2 years. So seeing as how it's our own facility and our own construction, we didn't feel that we had the need for inspection. However, New York State DOT disagreed and said if you want the money, you have to have a separate outside inspector.
Okay, thank you. So, what are the costs associated with the inspection?
Approximately $50,000.
That's just going to be it, correct? And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, are these requirements new, or are there something that new that they came up with, or we just didn't think that this was something they was going to charge us for?
Through the president, our typical federal aid project always involves typically us bidding the job out, hiring a consultant, and of course getting inspection for that. Seeing as how it was strictly an internal design and internal construction, we didn't foresee the need for an inspector because it's our own facilities, and we didn't recognize the fact that we should have an inspector because we're not going to put it in incorrectly. We trust ourselves to do it right. So
Okay.
That's why we didn't anticipate it.
So I appreciate you reiterating that. Thank you, Mr. President. So in the future, do we believe that all our federal jobs that we decide that we can do internally so that we can keep some of those funds for ourselves will require inspections, outside inspections? I mean, have we learned our lesson from this, or is there a lesson to be learned through you, Mr. President?
Through the president, yes, we recognize the need for an outside inspector now.
Thank you very much.
Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, are there other areas in which it was determined that an inspection wouldn't be needed that later resulted in issues with New York State DOT?
Through the president, not particularly. I guess I'm not quite following the question.
Sure. Let me clarify. So this is obviously something that came up because it was anticipated that inspections wouldn't need to be completed. So my question is, are there other projects in which you anticipated no inspection being needed and then yet an inspection either was needed or were just not in compliance with requirements of state DOT?
I apologize. Through the president, now, this is more of a one-of-a-kind project. We typically don't do the in-house design with the in-house construction, so that therefore we didn't really foresee the need for the inspection.
Okay, so
Typically, we always have to get the inspection.
okay, so through you, Mr. Chairman, that we don't anticipate this that someone coming back to us and saying, "Oh, by the way, this particular project you didn't get an inspection for either," correct?
Through the president, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Chairman, through the chair, will we be able to receive a timeline for when to expect all of these to be installed? Timeline for that?
Through the chair, we're anticipating a duration of about 2 years to have
2
them all
years?
installed.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes. One correction. Somehow I've been promoted to president, but my actual title is chairman, and I don't want Joe mad at me.
Referral 18-0262.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by Legislator Michike. Is there any discussion?
How are the, what criteria are taken into consideration to determine which crosswalks are justified intersections?
Through the chair, we evaluated all the crosswalks, but they are all unsignalized crosswalks. I'm sorry, all signalized and unsignalized, but they have to be marked crosswalks, existing marked crosswalks.
And also to the administration, through the chair, will there be any reimbursements from the federal government?
Through the chair, yes, this is 100% reimbursable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with the reimbursement of the federal funds, this is asking us to borrow. So when do we anticipate the monies to be refunded, and what are we going to do with the money once it's refunded? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, if I didn't say that originally.
Mr. Chairman, in projects such as this, when, especially for a 100% reimbursable capital project, we request the authorization to borrow funds is strictly a matter of law. To spend money, Mr. Chairman, we either need the legislature to appropriate funds or to authorize financing. Those are really our two choices. In this particular project, necessarily run out and borrow. We will work with the Department of Transportation on a planned calendar of spending and a planned calendar of claim reimbursement to work out what short-term borrowing may or may not be needed.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say thank you to the administration through the chairman. And it sounds good through you, Mr. Chairman, on that. But so we are saying that we may not, in reality, borrow this $1.2 million, but we're asking to possibly do so along the way if we decide that we may have to do some short-term borrowing for, say, a third or a quarter of this, that it would have been already approved, because we already approved this $1.2 million through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. It would already have been approved, and the short-term borrowings for a project like this, since the design and construction is anticipated to occur over a 2-year time span, likely the short-term borrowing would be anywhere from 6 to 12 months.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Legislator Rocco.
Through the chair, two-part question. How many crosswalks in Monroe is Monroe County responsible for?
Through the chair, we're responsible, I don't have the exact number of what we're responsible for, but we are going to be looking at making improvements to 126 signalized and 128 unsignalized locations.
And does this apply for all the towns and the city of Rochester?
It does not, through the chair, it does not apply through the city. The city's applying for their own grant to do this work. And through the chair, it also does not pertain to the town of Brighton, because Brighton has elected not to do this, because they don't want to maintain the facilities once we modify them.
So the 120, through the chair, so the 126 and the 128 are all within towns other than the city and the town of Brighton?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The item passes.
Referral 18-0263.
Moved by Legislator Michikay, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Any discussion? President Carbone.
Through the chair, would we be able to get a timeline of the project?
Through the chair, this is the first year of construction, and we have 1 more year to go. So it'll be completed by the fall of next year.
Thank you.
Further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? Seeing none, there being no other matters, the September 17th, 2018 meeting of the Transportation Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Transportation Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018 at 5:15 p.m.